An empire, not just powerful, but the greatest the world had ever seen. Civilization whose rules stretched from the deserts of Asia to the mountains of Europe, where countless nations stood under a single crown and a single command. But then, something unexpected happened. This mighty empire didn't fall slowly. It collapsed, faster than anyone could have imagined. No single enemy, no single battle. And yet, the title King of Kings was reduced to dust. How did a small and unknown tribe rise to build the largest empire in history? And how did that same empire, that once ruled the world, fall to its own weaknesses? This is not just a story of power, it is a story of ambition, strategy, and one of history's greatest downfalls. Today, we uncover the complete story of the Persian Empire, from the rise of Cyrus the Great to the power of Darius I, the ambition of Xerxes I, and the dramatic fall that brought it all to an end. This is not just the story of an empire, it is a story of power, a brilliant strategy, of the ambition that can build greatness or destroy it. The story of the Persian Empire does not begin in a great city. There were no towering walls, no vast armies, no signs of greatness. It began in a harsh and unforgiving land known as Persia, a land of rugged mountains, endless deserts, and scattered tribes living simple lives. Far from the centers of power, no one, looking at this place, would have imagined that it would one day give rise to the greatest empire the world had ever seen. And yet, from this unlikely beginning, something extraordinary was about to emerge. Because sometimes, history is not shaped by the powerful, but by those no one expects. And then, a name appears in history, a name that would change everything. Cyrus the Great, born a prince, but marked by danger from the very beginning. According to legend, prophecy foretold that he would one day overthrow a great king, a prophecy so terrifying that it nearly cost him his life. He was meant to be eliminated, erased from history before it even began, but he survived. Raised far from the throne, far from power, he grew not as a king, but as a leader shaped by hardship. And it was in those early struggles that Cyrus learned something no ruler before him truly understood: how to lead men, not through fear, but through loyalty. When he finally stepped into power, it was not just another king fighting for land. He was building something far greater. Cyrus was not just a ruler, he was a vision, an empire that once united the known world, that built roads across continents, connected cultures, and ruled over millions. In the end, it's collapsed under the weight of its own greatness, because power, when it grows too vast, becomes difficult to control, and history has shown, again and again, it's building an empire. It's only half the story. Keeping it alive is the real challenge. The Persian Empire may have fallen, but its legacy still echoes through history. Perhaps that is the true meaning of the Kings of Kings. And from this moment, something began to change. The Persian Empire still stood strong, but the cracks had begun to appear. It had grown too vast, too complex, too difficult to control. Overexpansion, once its greatest strength, was now becoming its greatest weakness. Ruling distant lands required constant attention, constant resources, and absolute control. But that control was slowly slipping away. After the great kings came weaker rulers, men who inherited power but lacked the vision and discipline to sustain it. Corruption spread, loyalty faded, and internal conflicts began to rise. Satraps grew more independent, rebellions became more frequent, and the unity that once defined the empire started to fall apart. The truth was simple. The Persian Empire was not being destroyed from the outside. It was collapsing from within. And then, from the west, a new force began to rise. A young conqueror, bold, fearless, and unstoppable. Alexander the Great. He was not leading the largest army, nor the richest empire, but he had something far more dangerous: relentless ambition. He faced the forces of Persia, and one by one, he defeated them. From the Battle of Issus to the decisive clash at Gaugamela, the Persian Empire was pushed back again and again. The once unstoppable power was now struggling to hold its ground, and at the center of it all stood the Persian king Darius III, a ruler trying to defend an empire that was already falling apart. In the end, it was not just the armies that failed him, it was the weight of a collapsing system. City after city fell into Alexander's hands, and with it, the Persian Empire came to an end. The title, King of Kings, defeated by a single man. Inspectors, secretly monitoring every corner of the empire. Nothing went unnoticed. This system is the backbone of Persian power. And then came a ruler who would take this system and perfect it. Darius I. Darius was not the founder of the empire, but he was the one who transformed it into a masterpiece. He understood something critical. Conquering land is one thing, but ruling it is something entirely different. So he reorganized the empire, bringing structure where there was chaos. He introduced a standardized tax system, ensuring that every region contributed fairly, and that the empire remained economically strong. He strengthened trade, stabilized currency, and turned Persia into one of the richest empires of its time. But Darius did not stop there. He invested heavily in infrastructure, expanding roads, building canals, and connecting distant lands like never before. Under his rule, the Persian Empire became more than just territory. It became a system, a perfectly functioning machine, efficient, powerful, meant unstoppable. But every empire, no matter how powerful, eventually meets its match. For Persia, that challenge came from an unexpected place. Greece, a collection of small city-states, divided, often fighting among themselves, and nowhere near the size of the Persian Empire. And yet they refused to submit. The first major clash came at the Battle of Marathon, against all odds. The Greeks defeated the Persian forces, delivering a shock the empire had never experienced before. For the first time, Persia had been stopped. But the story did not end there. Years later, the Persian king Xerxes I sought revenge. He assembled one of the largest armies the world had ever seen and marched toward Greece. Determined to crush all resistance, what followed became legend. The Battle of Thermopylae, a narrow pass, a small Greek force, standing against the might of the Persian army. For days they held their ground, fighting against impossible odds. And although Persia eventually broke through, the cost was far greater than expected. This was no longer a simple conquest. This was a war that would drain the strength of an empire. Cyrus began his rise, not as an emperor, but as a challenger. His first great test came against the powerful Median Empire. In a bold and calculated move, he led a rebellion and defeated the Medes, absorbing their strength into his own growing power. But he did not stop there. He turned west, toward the rich kingdom of Lydia, a land known for its wealth and its legendary king. And once again, Cyrus prevailed, victory after victory. His empire expanded, faster than anyone could have imagined. But his greatest triumph was yet to come. Babylon was the greatest city of its time, protected by massive walls, and believed to be impossible to conquer. Yet Cyrus did the unthinkable. He did not destroy the city, he outsmarted it by diverting the Euphrates River. His army entered through the riverbed, taking Babylon with minimal resistance. It was a victory not just of strength, but of intelligence. But what truly set Cyrus apart was not how he conquered. It was what he did after. He did not burn cities. He did not enslave entire populations. Instead, he respected local traditions, allowed religious freedom, and gave people the right to live according to their own cultures. And because of that, he was not seen as a conqueror, but as a liberator, a savior. The true strength of the Persian Empire was not its army. It was its system. An empire this vast, stretching across continents, could not survive on power alone. It needed order, speed, and control. And that is exactly what the Persians created. Built the legendary Royal Road, network stretching over 2,500 kilometers, connecting the farthest corners of the empire. Through this road, information moved faster than ever before in human history. A message that once took months could now travel across thousands of kilometers in a matter of days. This was made possible by an advanced postal system. Riders would relay messages across stations, day and night, without stopping. It was efficiency at a level the world had never seen, but controlling such a massive empire required more than roads. It required trust. So the empire was divided into regions, each governed by officials known as satraps. These satraps ruled in the king's name, collecting taxes, maintaining order, and ensuring loyalty. But they were never fully independent, because the king had his own eyes, 8 ears, everywhere.